Hello, my name's David Cole and I'm the Technical Director of Penstock Solutions. And today I'm going to talk to you about what constitutes a spill. Well, let's look at a spill first of all, because a spill could be as simply that somebody's just doing a gearbox change and they spill a little bit of oil on the floor, and that can be easily managed with a little bit of clear up from a spill kit. But that's not really what I'm interested in, or what you're probably interested in. I want to understand larger spills. Spills that actually could cause an environmental impact if something went wrong. So something that's going to impact your business because it potentially could leave your site and you wouldn't be able to control it. That's the type of spill that we're really interested in today. Cool. Well, when we look at a spill, can it get off your site? If it can get off your site, that might mean that it flows down the drains and leaves the site. It might go down the road and leave your site. Or it could be that it's in the ground and it's now moving away from your site very, very slowly. Those are really the three main issues that you've got to look with what actually is a pollution event. So let's look at one of the most common forms of spills, which is deliveries and movement of stock, which is when a large, say a bulk IBC of 1,000 litres is being moved around, or a tanker is delivering you a bulk storage of chemicals or fuel oil to your business. What can happen is that a hose breaks, somebody's moving some material around, they pierce a canister. What you've suddenly got then is a release of a material. What we're looking at there is that material then can flow quite quickly, and you don't really necessarily know where it was. Potentially, if it's a delivery from a tanker, it's in a specific location. But if all of a sudden you lost a hose and you've got 7,000 litres of under pressure material that suddenly comes spewing out, you've got to understand that that is a spill that could potentially then leave the site very, very quickly and cause you a pollution incident. Well, looking at the materials and the pollution impact is always really difficult, because lots of us think about sulfuric acid and common chemicals that are really nasty, but almost anything can be a pollution incident. For instance, if you just spill some milk, you can take out oxygen from the water, which can kill the fish. It could just be very, very turbid, dirty water, very silty water, which if you drop it into a river or a stream can impact the fish and the wildlife. So almost anything that shouldn't be there can be constituted as a spill. Well, the problem we've got a lot is that there are other types of spillages that occur. We often walk in and see an actual event where we see a spillage and we see it physically and we know what we've got to do, and we react with our spill kits, or we react with closing our toggle block valves or whatever device we've got in place. So we actually have an immediate reaction to it, and it's something that happens in front of us. But there's often events where you've got tanks and bunds that have got little leaches and leaks that nobody really notices. Quite a common one is that we find with underground storage of chemicals, or bulk storage of chemicals above ground, where there's a small loss of material but nobody really notices it for a long time, not until actually it leaves the site, which starts to impact the environment around it. These types of spills can be one of the most difficult, because once the actual leak is detected, it's probably been happening for a long, long period of time, and then remediation comes into place, which can be quite expensive. So controlling it at the beginning, or seeing it at the beginning, is essential. One of the common areas that we've worked on in the past is where a site has actually noticed that they've got an oil pollution problem. And recently, this year, actually, we were involved with a site that had, every time it rained, they had a pollution incident. But every time it stopped raining, they didn't. And what we detected, or what we found on that particular site, was that the oil had been lost from an old historical oil tank that hadn't been used for many, many years. But the oil had broken down into the ground. Once it got into the ground, every time it rained, the water table would rise slightly, and would, of course, because the hydrocarbons were sat on top of the water, would just lift the oil gradually up, which then caused it to actually enter the storm drains again and flow through the site. So every time it rained, we'd have a pollution incident. When it stopped raining, we wouldn't have a pollution incident. This type of impact is quite difficult, because then what you've got to do is you've got to remove that oil, or remediate that oil, pretty quickly, because you're never ever going to get back under control without doing some major remediation work. Well, managing spills has always been quite a simple process, and I think what most sites do is they look at a reactive measure. So they look at, there's a pollution incident, we've got some chemicals, there's a pollution incident, we react because we've got a big set of spill products which we take over and we mop it all up, we stick it into another bin, and that goes away as a hazardous waste. I think we like to look at it a little bit differently, and we as a business try to look at it as eliminating the actual spill in the first place. And you can do that by looking at your risk and your process of how spills happen. But once you've done that, what you can do then is by containing a spill and keeping it in the material it was, rather than using another material to collect it really. If you can keep it in its liquid form, or you can keep it in its sort of pure form, you can actually recycle it, you can reuse it, you can send it away for reprocessing. Whereas if we've actually then used it where we've actually cleaned it up with materials, which is common like from a spill kit product, you've actually now created, as in my opinion, another material that's purely, you're just going to move that spill, that waste, to somewhere else, which is a hazardous waste site for disposal, but it never really goes away. Whereas if we can contain it as its liquid form, we can actually reuse it. Well, for this type of issue, we would recommend that you use our 6 steps so that you actually can understand what your problems are and solve them. Step 1, understand the regulations. Step 2, understand how the regulations apply to your specific site. Step 3 is to audit your site. Step 4 is design an appropriate solution. Step 5 is to implement your design. And step 6 is monitor, maintain and document what you do. If you have any questions or would like to know more information, please don't hesitate to contact me.